On this exciting episode, we've got a college president with a questionable past, a $1 million donation hanging in the balance, and a dead financial advisor who knew too much. Pack your textbooks, sharpen those pencils. It's Perry Mason, Season 5, Episode 12, The Case of the Brazen Bequest. Welcome to the Perry Pod. I'm your humble host, Jonathan Searcy. My purpose, pretty simple, provide an audio companion to every episode of television's greatest legal drama, Perry Mason. Each episode, we give you a summary of the plot. We even compare plots with the Earl Stanley Gardner novel, if the episode was an adaptation. We give you a little trivia, reveal the episode's theme, and revel in a Perry proverb. That's a pearl of wisdom from the man himself. Before heading to the water cooler where, just like Perry, Della, and Paul, we can discuss the ins and outs of our fave legal cruise adventures. But first, say it with me, to the law library! Each episode in the law library, we examine a legal conundrum from the episode to find courtroom precedents for future cases. This episode's legal question involves the unusual circumstance of Judge Winters calling his own witness during the proceedings.
Mr. Horner, the court appreciates that the prosecution may not wish to vouch for this man as a prosecution witness, and certainly the defense should not be bound by his testimony. But since the court wishes to find out what this man knows, I'm going to have him put on the stand as the court's witness and question him as such. Now, the procedure is irregular, but the court feels it to be in the best interest of justice.
While uncommon, judges do have the authority to call and question witnesses independently of both the prosecution and defense. This power comes with several important conditions. 1, the judge must remain impartial and not appear to favor either side. 2, both prosecution and defense have the opportunity to cross-examine the witness. And 3, the testimony must be relevant to material facts in the case. This judicial prerogative dates back to common law, though it's rarely exercised in modern American courts. When it does occur, it's typically to clarify factual issues that neither side has fully addressed, rather than to introduce new evidence. In this episode, it's more of a plot contrivance than it is a true representation of legal practice. Now, to the plot of this episode. The Case of the Brazen Bequest. Charles Cromwell has a problem. He's about to become president of Euclid College and secure a $1 million endowment from James Varden. But Varden's cash comes with a catch.
Mr. Varden has some curiously straight-laced notions.
Boy, he must have. I mean, what is it with him anyway? Does he want the whole world scrubbed antiseptic just because he made his money in soap?
So, as the faculty party gets underway, someone rolls up and threatens to upset Cromwell's $1 million apple cart.
Are you all right?
Sure, I'm all right, fellas. I'm perfectly all right. As soon as I downed the wrong pew, didn't I?
Maisie Freitag's the name. Old friend from Cromwell's past's the game. But her sudden appearance has our future college president sweating more than a freshman during finals week.
Wilson, you're not carrying anything on about what happened today.
Well, I had kind of thought about running a box asking this curly she was looking for to come forward and identify himself.
Wilson.
Well, I'm just kidding, sir. I mean, even without Mr. Varden to worry about, I wouldn't poke fun at a sick person. She had a heart attack in the cab, you know.
Let's meet our campus characters. There's Cromwell, our educator with a mysterious past.
Hi, Maisie.
Who scalped you, Curly?
The ears carry tomahawks.
There's James Varden, philanthropist who believes in clean living.
I want my money to do some good while I'm still here to see it. And I think a few up-and-coming educators like Cromwell are exactly the men to put that money to the very best use. This year, not next.
Robert, don't call me Eddie. Haskell, Varden's suspicious financial advisor.
You're not exactly fond of Dr. Cromwell, are you, Bob? Well, I am. It isn't often you meet a man of his moral fiber.
Oh, I've got nothing against him personally. It's just his endowment that he's talked you into.
Bob, when I sold out and retired, I kept you on to manage my investments, not question my spending. Remember?
Well, if you go through with this, there won't be nearly as many investments to manage.
There's Dr. Tate, a good friend of Cromwell's.
It's that Haskell idiot. If you don't peel him off our backs, there's going to be open rebellion. You and your commencement rehearsal, fouling up a perfectly good faculty garden party. This is a sample. Heaven help the college when you take over as president.
You're only saying that because it's true. Anyway, it wasn't my idea. Haskell insisted on it.
There is no benefactor like Varden, and Robert Haskell is his prophet.
We've got Dick Wilson, a student with a poetic crush on Mrs. Cromwell.
The trouble is that night in the cocktail bar, I slipped a poem into your handbag when you weren't looking. It was a love poem I wrote and signed and put your name on.
Speaking of Mrs. Cromwell...
Oh, I've been downtown shopping. I just this moment got in. Yes, I know. I heard it on the car radio coming home. Wait a minute. Somebody's at the door. What? Well, of course I have to answer it. Why shouldn't I?
And don't forget groundskeeper Pete Gibson.
You're very kind, Mrs. Cromwell, but at another time.
Next time we'll hit him on the head.
Yes, ma'am, that would slow him down. But you got to hand it to him. He sure is on the ball for Mr. Varden.
Well, Cromwell has a tearful farewell with Maisie.
Shove off, Doc. Curly'll take care of me. He remembered me.
Once he finds out she's made a will to him, and he knows that will may jeopardize his relationship with Varden, he calls Perry in.
There is one hope, Dr. Cromwell. If Miss Freitag mailed her will directly to the court, it might be delayed on the clerk's desk for a few days, pending petition for probate. I could ask Paul Drake to inquire into the matter if you wish.
But what good would that do? He couldn't get it back, could he?
No, but at least you'd be informed. You would know best how to cope with the situation.
But when Cromwell discovers that Haskell is behind Maisie's appearance, oh boy. He confronts him at the hotel, and later when Haskell is found dead...
The victim's name was Robert Haskell. He worked for a James Varden. You found the body at approximately 2:10, called us without disturbing anything, and didn't see anyone until we got here. Neither of you knew Haskell personally, have no idea who killed him or ransacked the room. Is that the story?
Complete and correct.
The case gets complicated when Cromwell's found with his wife's purse, which had been in Haskell's room. He discovers in that purse a love poem from young Wilson to Mrs. Cromwell, and Perry's got quite the collegiate final exam to take. As Perry digs deeper, he discovers a link to Panama, where Curly, aka Cromwell, met Maisie. Turns out Perry knows the chief investigator there.
I'm also a little surprised at such a complete record. Not the police record, this one.
But you see, the stabbing victim was the older brother of someone who now has much importance in Panama. Someone who has watched every lead the police have taken to locate the murder.
Senor Sandoval, who is the someone you just spoke of?
Myself, Senor Mason.
Handyman Pete Gibson seems like a likely suspect.
All right, I told him about Maisie, but I didn't know much about any killing down there. It was only gossip like you hear in those joints.
But Haskell investigated, is that right? And he sent for Maisie, knowing the embarrassment of her presence here would make it impossible for Dr. Cromwell to explain away his past to Mr. Varden.
Sure, that's what we thought about. Haskell sent for Maisie, and he signed my name. He told her that Dr. Cromwell said it was okay for her to come up here, and he signed my name.
And after he used you like that, you killed him because he refused to pay you that $300. Isn't that so?
But he's not the guilty one. It's Dr. Tate, the man who tried to give Pete an alibi. Under Perry's cross-examination, Tate confesses.
When I discovered what Haskell was up to, I went to his hotel. I was already outraged over what he was trying to do to my best friends, the Cromwells. When I told Haskell what I thought of him, he struck me. I struck him. You killed him?
Yes, make me say it. I struck him and he fell against something and he didn't move again.
In our denouement, Cromwell decides to honor Maisie's memory by establishing a $2,000 scholarship fund from her estate. And in a touching moment about faith in human nature, Della and Perry have their faith restored.
You've just restored my faith in marriage and men.
But it confirms your faith in women.
Now, let's get trivial, shall we? Each episode in our trivia section, I give you 3 takeaways. A Paul is a subject worth investigating more. Adela is a deep dive on an actor or actress who guest starred in the episode. And a Perry is something we learn about our intrepid hero. Our Paul for the episode involves Euclid College.
How did you get your job at Euclid College?
Our prompt: what real California institution might Euclid be based on? The show gives us some interesting facts. It's a private college. It's prestigious enough to merit $1 million endowment. That's almost $9.5 million in 2024 cash. It's located close enough to Los Angeles for Perry to easily visit. And it has a traditional campus layout with faculty housing, a bell tower that can be heard all over town, and established traditions like faculty garden parties. Tell us what you find, Pauls! Our Della for this episode, Barbara Stewart, a.k.a. Maisie Freitag.
Tell him to go fly a kite. Curly and me got a lot of remembering to do. Not much time to do it in.
Here's 10 about Babs. 1. Born Barbara Ann McNeese, January 3rd, 1930, Paris, Illinois. Grew up in nearby Hume, showing early signs of the small-town girl who'd make it big. Number 2, post-high school, studied at the prestigious Schuster Martin School of Drama in Cincinnati before moving to NYC. Trained under legendary acting teachers Stella Adler, Uta Hagen. Number 3, paid for those acting classes by working as a model. Took the stage name Stewart, which was a family name. 1954, landed her first TV role in I Led 3 Lives. Number 4, breakthrough came in 1955, a recurring role as Bessie, the charmingly inept secretary on The Great Gildersleeve. Number 5, by the early 1960s, she became a regular face on TV, notably appearing as Miss Bunny, Sergeant Carter's long-suffering girlfriend on Gomer Pyle USMC. Number 6, her Perry Mason appearance as Maisie wasn't her only brush with legal drama. She appeared on numerous crime and mystery shows. We saw her initially in The Case of the Guilty Clients, where she was Bill Ryder's wife. Number 7, primarily a TV actress, but appeared in several films, including Marines, Let's Go!, Hellfighters, and memorably as Mrs. Rex Kramer in the comedy classic Airplane. Number 8, continued working well into the 2000s, wrapping up her career with a recurring role on Showtime's show Huff from 2004 to 2006. Number 9, married to actor Dick Gautier, Gautier. Though the marriage began dramatically, their honeymoon was canceled when she was hospitalized for 8 months due to a blood clot. Marriage later ended in divorce, but she by then had become stepmother to his 3 children, Diane, Denise, and Rand. Number 10, passed away on May 15th, 2011 in St. George, Utah. She was 81. Our Perry for this episode involves a tantalizing connection to Panama.
I'd like the earliest plane reservation to Panama. Also put in a call to Panama City. Senor Rafael Dominguez y Sandoval.
That's the man who helped us on the extradition case 2 years ago.
He's a great lawyer, and politically a most influential man. I'm very grateful, my friend. Pero nada. To you, my door is always open.
Here's a fun question for you to ponder. When did Perry and Sandoval first meet? If you're into Perry fan fiction, how about writing up that meeting for us and sending it along? Our theme for the case of the Brazen Bequest could only be brazenness. This episode explores different kinds of bold, shameless behavior, both good and bad. First, There's Robert Haskell's brazen interference in college affairs. He doesn't just meddle, he brazenly orchestrates Maisie's appearance, stocks her room with liquor, and tries to sabotage the endowment. Then we've got young Dick Wilson's brazen crush on Mrs. Cromwell. What could be more audacious than slipping a love poem into a soon-to-be college president's wife's purse? Dr. Tate shows us a darker side of brazenness, the boldness of a desperate man making up alibis for himself? But there's also positive brazenness. Charles Cromwell, boldly honest when he decides to publicly acknowledge Maisie's bequest at the end of the episode. And of course, James Varden still gives the $1 million endowment. The episode suggests that sometimes you need a little brazenness, the boldness to face the truth, admit your mistakes, and trust in others. Now, it's time for a Perry proverb. This episode's Pearl of Wisdom comes when Perry tracks down Curly at his hidden office in the old lab building. Despite the tension of the moment, Perry doesn't mince words.
Now, there's no time for equivocations, either from you or from Mrs. Cromwell. Leave her out of this, Mr. Mason.
Ironically, the whole case began because of equivocations. Cromwell hedging about his past, Mrs. Cromwell being unclear about her connection with young Dick Wilson. All that ambiguity and half-truth-telling only deepens the trouble. Perry's warning proves prophetic. It's only when people stop equivocating and start getting real that the truth comes out and justice can be served. And with that, it's time to grab a swig from the water cooler.
There is one thing I don't understand.
Go on, Paul.
Every time we visit the water cooler, we give you deleted scenes, 3 bits that didn't quite make the episode's final cut. Number 1, during the faculty garden party, Mrs. Cromwell, quote, accidentally, end quote, spills an entire pitcher of iced tea on Haskell. Number 2, when Perry initially questions Professor Tate about his past at a small New England college, Tate starts confessing intellectual indiscretions left and right. No, I've never read Hamlet. Yes, I thought Stuart Symington would have been a better presidential candidate than JFK. Yes, I think Whitey Ford is overrated and did not deserve the MVP for the 1961 World Series. Number 3, in the denouement, Paul Drake suggests they celebrate by having a graduation party at Health House. Let's get a rodeo contest going. Our Paul prompt from The Case of the Left-Handed Liar. Asked about handball's popularity in America circa 1961. Dad Drake was on the case. Quote, handball was a niche sport, popular among working class communities, especially in urban areas such as NYC, Chicago, and LA. Frequently found in health clubs, had a regional presence, particularly in cities with large immigrant populations. The first recorded indoor handball court in the U.S. was built in 1886 in a New York athletic club. Outdoor courts became popular in public parks during the early 20th century, especially after World War I. Close quote. Aunt Mai, the P.I., also did some sleuthing. Quote, while it was not a mainstream sport compared to baseball, basketball, or football, handball enjoyed some visibility through organizations like the U.S. Handball Association, which promoted tournaments and competitions. The USHA had been established in 1951. By the early 1960s, it was helping to standardize rules and encourage participation. Close quote. Thanks, you two. As always, I'd love to hear from you. Do you have a comment on the episode or the pod in general? Why don't you drop me a line at theperrypod@gmail.com. Next time, secrets from World War II come back to haunt the present when a reporter's investigation into a Nazi war criminal leads to murder at a monastery. It's the case of the renegade refugee. Join us, won't you? Until then, this is Jonathan Searcy saying, keep on walking that Park Avenue beat!